Tomatoes and pasta go together like peanut butter and jelly. I recently decided to put them together in the form of fresh pasta noodles. Serve these sun-dried tomato with herbs pasta noodles with a homemade béchamel or Alfredo sauce, and you have a fantastic meal. I'm excited to share my recipe for a sun-dried tomato farfalle pasta noodle. While this pasta recipe can be cut into any shape, I think the butterfly or bow tie shape is quite fun and tasty. Let's check it out. For the ingredients, you'll only need 2 plus water, a jar of sun-dried tomatoes with herbs packed in oil, semolina flour, and water. First, you want to drain 150 grams, which is an 8.5 ounce jar of sun-dried tomatoes. I like this recipe with Italian herbs. You do not have to buy a jar of tomatoes with Italian herbs, but they should be soaked in water or olive oil, and I prefer the ones soaked in oil. And I'm also using ones that are julienne cut just to make it easier to break down. But you can use the halves or wholes, whatever you have, just make sure that they've been soaked so that they're moist. And then drain them. As you can see, I've drained mine over a bowl. And you're going to place your tomatoes in a food processor. We're going to blend to break them down, and we'll let the machine run for about a minute. Okay, they're all nicely broken down. You can stop and scrape down the bowl edges. It's a beautiful color, isn't it? We're gonna add 300 grams, which is about 2 cups of semolina flour. We're gonna blend for about 30 seconds until the mixture is combined, but it'll still be grainy. Scrape down the bowl edges. Notice it's come together very nicely. I have a measuring cup with half a cup of water in it. We're gonna start with 1/4 cup, which is 59 milliliters. And then blend, and the mixture should begin to stick together. We stop and scrape down the bowl edges. You can see it's coming together. It's starting to stick together, but it's still too dry and grainy, so we need to add more water. You're gonna add up to another 60 milliliters of water, which is another 1/4 cup, but only add about a tablespoon at a time while the machine is running. You're waiting for the mixture to form a ball in the machine, and it should be moist. You can see it's starting to come together in a more sticky substance here. All right, now that's starting to look like it's really coming together. Okay, it is. It's forming a tight, nice ball now. It should be moist. I may add another tablespoon of water. Keep in mind that don't worry if you add a little too much water or not enough, because you can always add more flour or more semolina flour or more water as you go. So if you're not sure, you can always start kneading the process and always add more if you need it to make it the consistency that you need. All right, check that out. I don't have any dry flour in this bowl whatsoever. It has really come together to a nice wet dough. So that's pretty much the consistency I'm looking for. And I'm gonna add more flour as I go when I need, but at least it won't be too dry to start with. Go ahead and flour your work surface. You can use semolina flour or just regular all-purpose flour. I use both, or I use a combination. It doesn't really matter. And then you're just going to remove the dough from your food processor. All right, and then you're going to start to knead the dough, just like you would regular bread dough. If it falls apart a little bit, it's okay. The 7 minutes that we need is how long it's gonna take for this dough to become a tacky, smooth ball. It will be a bit dense, unlike a regular bread dough, but that's what we need for pasta. Keep adding flour as you need. Again, regular flour or semolina flour, whatever you have or what's convenient. Oh, those tomatoes and herbs smell really good. Okay, so notice the ball is smooth, it's tacky, but it's not sticky in any way. All right, so we're gonna just leave the ball where it is, cover it with a towel or plastic wrap, and we're just gonna let it sit for about 20 minutes so that it rests, allows any gluten that's in it to relax, and it'll make it easier to roll out. You're gonna line a baking sheet with parchment paper, and then dust it with a little bit of semolina flour or regular all-purpose flour or any flour that you have to keep the dough from sticking to the paper, and then set it aside. At this point, you can roll out the dough in the shape that you want for making different pasta shapes, including using a pasta machine if available. So this pasta dough can be used for any pasta shape. You can make lasagna noodles, you could do spaghetti noodles, fettuccine noodles, tagliatelle noodles. It's just whatever you want. But we're going to make farfalle pasta today. And so to make it more manageable, we're going to divide the dough into 3 relatively equal pieces. You can weigh if you want. Shape each piece into a rough ball. Place 2 on a plate or set aside and cover with a towel to keep them from drying out. And the other one we're going to roll and shape into our butterfly pieces. Go ahead and flour your board with semolina flour or regular flour. And then try to shape this in somewhat of a rectangle here. Okay, so to make farfalle, which is Italian for the word butterfly, but also looks like bow ties, you want to roll the dough out to about a 1/16 inch thick, which is about the thickness of a nickel. And it doesn't really matter so much what the shape looks like. We're going to get it into a rectangle, so you might want to roll it out to about a 10 by 14 or thinner, and then we're just going to trim it off anyway to get a rectangle so that we can make our score and cuts to get the squares that we need to make the pasta. Okay, at this point, once you get it rolled out, you can trim it off if you want so that you have some straight edges. It really doesn't matter like how you measure it. We're going to be making 1.5 inch squares. We're going to be scoring the dough anyway. So I'm just going to try to square it off on the corners just to make it even all around. And I find it really easy when you're trimming off pasta just to use like a pizza cutter. Notice how quick that was. Okay, and then we'll set these aside, and we're not going to waste those. We'll use it by rolling it out later. Now I'm going to move to my knife because it's easier to score with a knife than a pizza cutter. So we're going to make 1.5 inch lines. So I like to use a ruler, give it a score. It looks like we're going to have a little bit of extra pasta on the other dough on the other side. Maybe do it a couple different places. I don't have to be this precise. If you are being precise, this is how you would do it. And then just do a light scoring along, see, the length of your dough. So I'm not cutting all the way through yet. We're also going to score horizontally 1.5 inches. So this, again, we'll be making 1.5 inch squares. And then just take your knife and score it. If you wanted to make the traditional butterfly or bow ties with has the fluted edges, then you would need sort of a pasta wheel that has the fluted edges. And then either horizontally or vertically, you just go ahead and cut through the scores so that you have the ruffles on one side. Again, you could do it either horizontally, as long as they're all horizontally that way, or vertically, all vertically that way, because you need to have 2 sides that are straight, 2 sides that are ruffled. That's what the traditional bow tie / farfalle pasta looks like. So now we can go back, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm just using straight edges for all 4 of mine. And then of course I find that the pizza wheel works easiest. And then now go back and cut through all of your scored lines to get even squares. Okay, so look at that. Now we can pull them up just like that, and they're easy to remove as long as your surface has been floured well. To make the farfalle, you take 1 square. You're going to fold in 2 edges that are opposite of each other, like so. So it looks like this. And then you're going to squeeze together the center. The center needs to be the thickness of the pasta because you don't want uneven cooking. And so there you have, that's your bow tie. Then as you make them, just place them on your parchment paper or the pan that's been dusted with semolina flour and set it aside. And we just keep doing this for all of the pasta squares. You could do it fairly quickly. They may not all be super pretty, but you can get that shape fairly simply. See? And we're gonna do the same thing all the way down for each square. As you complete them, place them in a single layer on your baking sheet and then just keep adding to it. If you have the ruffled edges, you would have, say, a ruffled edge here and a ruffled edge here with a straight edge here and here. You're gonna fold in the straight edges to make the accordion fold, but then your ruffled edges are gonna be on the outside. So if you were doing ruffles, that's what it would look like. This is how much 1/3 of the dough makes. Once you fill your pan with one layer of farfalle pasta, then what I like to do is just add a sheet of parchment paper, or this is wax paper actually. Add a dusting of a semolina flour, regular flour, and then we just keep adding the pasta to the top. I'm on my last 2 farfalle shapes, but I want you to look at the pasta. Notice all of the herbs that are in the pasta dough. I love this pasta. You can smell the herbs, you can smell the tomato. You can also spot some dark pieces of tomato. In fact, there's one sticking out on the edge there. For any extra dough that you have left over, I don't really have enough that I want to roll into and make another square out of. So what I like to do oftentimes is just do little strips, and you can actually do this without even making the farfalle. If you just wanted some standard pasta strips for the leftovers, this can be like the taste test. So you could just strip the pasta like this pretty quickly. It's a lot easier than making the farfalle. And then you could just have a small bowl of pasta strips and you can taste the pasta and you can see what you like or don't like about it, but it is a good pasta. And then you've got just a small little serving for yourself in addition to all the farfalle that we have here. So I have that pasta dough that we made creates 2 layers that look like this, stacked on top of each other, and this is how much the farfalle makes, in addition to any leftover pieces that you have. So you can test this for dinner tonight and then make this for your family and friends tomorrow or the next day. So I typically make the pasta one day, cover it, wrap it in plastic wrap, covered completely, and stick it in the fridge. And then I will cook this either tomorrow and or the next day. I might make some tomorrow and then some the next day. And it stays just right in the refrigerator and you don't need to do anything special with it. That's it. The best thing about homemade pasta is that you have options like flavor, shape, size, and how to store them. Eat them immediately, dry them out, refrigerate them until tomorrow or the next day, or freeze them for later use. See the recipe in the description below for details on how to cook and preserve them. Use any preferred pasta sauce, like a creamy bechamel or Alfredo sauce would go very well with this tomato-based pasta. Add your favorite veggies or Italian sausage to round out this dish for a main course. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. Until next time, make a batch of sun-dried tomato pasta noodles, serve them with your favorite creamy sauce, and go bake the world.